Good evening. This is Poultry Keepers 360, and we are so happy you've joined us tonight. We're going to get right into the meat of the matter. So, why don't we do that? Tonight, we're pulling back the curtain on the biggest secrets hidden inside your backyard coop. These are the things new poultry keepers don't always learn from store bought books or Pinterest pictures. I'm talking about the interior setup choices. That makes the difference between a coop that's easy to manage and one that becomes a chore you dread doing. By the end of the night, you'll know the five most impactful changes that you can make inside your coop. They're going to reduce mess, protect your birds, stretch your feed budget, and keep your flock healthier all year long. These five secrets can transform your entire experience. Trust me. And most folks have never heard them explained the way we're about to share them. So, guys, I say let's get started. Now, let's start with roost. Why do roost matter? Anybody?
I think roost matter because their chickens originated from jungle fowl, and their natural instinct is to light up in a tree, and having a roost for them to rest on, it's like peaceful or home. It's more natural than them standing in wet, cold poop floating with bacteria all the time. When like right in Alabama, the last few days, we've gotten a stupid amount of rain. Well, because all my birds have a roost, they're able to not stand in what happens until I can go shovel a truckload of stall pellets in there.
Exactly. I
Well, I
think
mean,
one of the things that roost bring about is sort of a nighttime stability in the
Mm-hmm.
flock. They're not always squabbling like they would be if they were just out on the ground.
Right.
Um, Jeff, how do they help foot health of our birds?
helps our foot health of our birds a lot. Um,
Yeah.
they were never designed to stand in wet environments at all, right? I mean, they're just not. They're a dry land. Only short exposures to ground moisture, right? Yeah, I mean, they'll play in a mud puddle for a little bit, but 90% of their time they need to have dry feet, right? So, managing that bedding, and even going back to like the roost thing. My birds would roost in the middle of the day, right? If the weather wasn't great or whatever, my flock would get up on the roost, right, in the hen house, right. If the weather was fit or whatever, they were out, doing. But um, it gives them a mental security, a secure feeling to get up on that roost, right? I mean, they evolved that way for a reason, but yeah, we got to keep yeah, they're just
I
not
also
wet.
think it helps a little bit with air circulation around the birds,
Yeah.
but
It was strange how they all pick their own spot, right? They do their own thing, right? And they don't like being changed. Once
no.
that order is set, don't go in there and move them around, right? That's just not a
Oh, it's
good.
funny to do that.
Yeah, it's a good way to start a fight, right? Things don't work out well for somebody. Even in the dark, they can tell if there's the wrong person beside them. So,
Look, I have went in and in the evenings, I use my green headlamp and I'll go after it's got dark check them out, look at their legs, make sure everything's good. Because really, for me, with my busy life, that's about the only time I have time. And if I don't set them back in the same spot, oh yeah, I mean, they'll start clucking, like letting me know how I ruined their night.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then the whole yard will be clucking
Oh,
until
yeah.
I pick the bird up and put them back in the right spot. I'm like, it's dark back here. You're not supposed to be able to see.
They
But
know.
they know.
They know.
They know.
Yep.
I don't know how they know, but they know, right?
Mhm.
So
Jeff, and I know you're good with this. How high is the ideal height for a roost to be above the floor of the coop?
So your roost definitely needs to be higher than your nest box openings, right? So this discourages them from sleeping in their nest boxes. And if anybody thinks a hen sleeping in a nest box is a good idea, I'm sorry, you're wrong. Okay, you do not want that to happen unless you like washing poopy eggs, right?
Because it
Not
will
my idea of
definitely
a good time.
happen.
Yeah.
I was going to say, unless you
So
like cleaning out
just
nest boxes.
just from observation at my place. Now breeds vary, right? So we had some Brahmas, we had Orpingtons, Black Australorps. We had the barnyard special. So 3 foot off the ground worked really well for my flock. Now, if I had heavier birds, and mine were the hatchery variety of those breeds, right? So they were not the big true heavyweights. Um, 2.5 to 3 foot is about all you can expect. A larger fowl to really get up and be comfortable. But at least as long as they're 18 inches, somewhere between 18 inches, a foot and a half to 3 foot, I would say, and that depends on your breed. Some people like to, set up shorter bars, like one at a foot, one at 2 foot, and then they can hop their way up there, and that's fine. Don't count the lower bars as roost space. And I made my roost bars all level. Okay. Every one of them was at 3 foot because my first roost bars I set up on that whole angled ladder setup.
Mm-hmm.
And all I had was a bunch of fighting, right? The Americanas had to be at the top. And if they weren't at the top, right, they were just beating the piss out of somebody. I mean, they were just brutal. Even though they were on the smaller side of the flock, weight-wise,
They're
they were
feisty.
they were really feisty. I had two of them that would go in way early before sunset to ensure they had the highest spot on the roost. So
That's funny.
it's funny for you. It was not funny for me because then the fighting begins, at sundown, right? Who's going to be at the top? So I just made them. That was my one and only act of socialism. I made them all equal at 3 feet. So, okay.
That makes sense.
And it took away all that aggression for top spot.
I like the roost all on the same level. For one reason, to me, it just seemed like it was easier to clean out from under them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, so I put my roost so they were all connected by support stringers. And then I put them on a hinge with a counterbalance so I could actually lift it up out of the way, right? And the counterweight would hold it in place. And then I could clean out without bending over, right? I could get in there with my pitchfork and do what I had to do. So,
What
That
about
sounds nice.
Metal roost? Yes or no?
no,
No
not
metal,
even.
no PVC.
Actually, I
Nothing.
like softwood actually, and I don't even like like oak and maple or hardwoods. I prefer a soft, buy it at the store, a soft pine. And usually now the dimensional lumber at a store like Lowe's or Home Depot is all loplolly pine. So the growth rings on it are really wide, right? Because it's a fast growing tree. And when you do that, that wood's even softer than like an old growth pine. So I want something that they can claw into, right? They can dig their toenails into and hold on. Um, so yeah,
I always like to round over the top edges on the 2x4s. Um, it just felt like it was a little bit of a more natural uh, fit for the bird's foot.
oh for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean
Anywhere,
that makes it more like a tree limb.
right?
Hmm.
And I think some of the best tree limbs I've seen are people actually go out and cut down, 2-inch type saplings, right? And they'll use those as their roost bars, and they'll leave the bark on them, right?
Yep.
Because that's your grip point. That's your anti-skid, so to speak, and it works really good.
So I do that in my grow outs. I'll find some tree limbs, or I will make some tree limbs that don't need to be up anymore. Like low hanging trees in the backyard and stuff like that. I'll take those limbs and I'll put them in the grow out and use the wire to kind of hold them in place, or a couple of scrap pieces of 2x4 to hold them up so they're stable. But I've used those for roosting areas quite a few times. They like it. They
Yeah,
also like all horses.
yeah. I mean, if you have access to the right kind of saplings or limbs, then I didn't know back when we had our flock. I have a really nice spruce tree in the backyard. I could have gone out there and limbed it and got perfect 2-inch, inch and a half, 2-inch limbs that were straight and used those for roost bars. No, I had to make them, right? I went the hard way. I went through all the growing pains of let's make them on an angle and let's make them various heights, and right. Oh,
See, when Rip talked about how he liked to round off the edges on the 2x4s, that just tells me how long it's been since he built some. He had to have built them right when he built them,
mm-hmm.
because them things are rounded now, because that's less actual wood they have to put on it.
I like them a little more rounded than what they come from the store.
Yeah.
Okay. I know the way they are now looks like they had a 1/4-inch router bit go over the sides.
Yeah, they chamfer all the edges now, right? They don't leave them rough. So
What about space per bird on a roost?
depends
I
on your
know
breed.
Yeah.
it's pretty critical.
I had 4 to 6 pound birds, and I allowed 6 to 8 inches per bird, right? So I would say you're probably, if you're looking for a ratio, like 1.5 inches of linear per pound of chicken, or the other way around. So pound of chicken. So like I said, I had 6 inches. Yeah, it's 1.5 per pound of chicken. So
Yeah.
I would have 6 inches for a 4-pound chicken, 8 inches for a 6-pound chicken. Kind of that way. And they were comfortable, but I also always had 20% more roost space than I actually had birds, right? I never counted every inch, because there's some birds that don't want anyone to sleep next to them, and they have to have their own space. So you always want a surplus of roosting bar space.
Yeah.
That's a really smart move.
Yeah. So, well, you know how chicken math works, though, right? You make enough roosting space for 20 chickens, and before you know it, you have 30, and you're out. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
you might as well just figure that overage right at the beginning, because it's going to happen. It's an illness that all chicken people get at some point, right? To have too many.
And some of us on occasion relapse. So, earlier we were talking about make sure your roosts were always above your nesting box. But also, you don't want them over your feeders or your waterers,
No.
because you're going to create a mess that's not very sanitary, because those birds, they like to poop at night, and they can poop a lot. So
Well,
it's just,
if you're doing the afternoon feeding like I recommend,
Mm-hmm.
Then if you're doing a limited amount or controlled feeding and you feed in the afternoon 1 to 2 hours before sundown, then for sure there's going to be good manure deposits under the roost the following morning, right? Going to happen. So
You have a little mound
yeah, but it's
because
easy
they get in the same spot on the roosting pole.
yeah, but it makes it a whole lot easier to clean up, right? Because it's going to be in a nice little pile,
Mm-hmm.
easy to grab with a pitchfork, right?
Yep.
And
Toss it.
toss it. It's not scattered all over the yard. So, there is a method to my insaneness to feed in the afternoon that the majority of the chicken poop will be under the roost where it's easy to clean and maintain.
Mm-hmm. My old mentor said, and we were talking about squabbling between birds, but Mr. Reese always said, a good roost setup prevents 80% of the nighttime drama inside the coop.
Amen to that.
Let's move along to nesting setup, because a good nesting setup is going to boost your egg quality because they're going to be cleaner automatically.
Yep.
And I know, Jeff, you recommend a box size of 12 by 12 by 12 for an average size layer.
Now that would be the larger size, like a standard bred,
Yes. Yes.
Rhode Island red. I mean, a true Rhode Island red. Yes. Now, for people with hatchery birds that only weigh 4 to 6 pounds, 4 or 5 pounds, you can get by with an 8-inch wide nest that is 12 high and 12 deep. But you don't want extra space in a nest box. Okay. The biggest mistake I see are nest boxes are too big and they can accommodate more than one chicken at a time.
Oh yeah.
And that creates problems in itself.
We actually, that's the picture I used for our YouTube art, was a picture of nest boxes, and several of those nest boxes you can see two birds in. And that's just asking for trouble.
Especially if you don't have curtains on there. Right?
Yes.
And, one of the biggest neglects I see, people don't put curtains on their nest boxes. They don't put the nest boxes in the darkest place of the coop in the morning, so if that between 8 and 11, you need to find where it's the darkest corner of your hen house to place those nests, right? And you still need curtains. You want to minimize the amount of light going into that nest box. So,
See, in some of my pens, I don't really have shade in the morning. So what I did was I put the back of my nest box from where the sun comes up, and the front is away from it. And I used a canvas type material or the shade cloth, and they like them pretty well.
Jeff, you were mentioning one time on one of our shows that you used what was it, a pond liner?
right,
Vinyl pond liner?
you can get like a 3 or 4. I mean, a real thin rubber sheeting. If you go to a better end landscaping store that supports backyard fish ponds, so it's a pond liner, right? You can get pond liner, and pond liner is excellent because it holds up to any ammonia smell. It really holds up great to the wear and tear of the hen going in and out. And you can cut it, to size. And then once you get it fastened or attached with, self-tapping sheet metal screws or whatever you choose, then you come back with a really fresh, sharp utility knife, and you cut vertical slits, kind of like those plastic freezer doors, right? And about every 1.5 inches. Don't cut all the way to the top, right? Leave yourself 1.5 inches or so from the top. Don't cut all the way through, and works great. And then when you get new pullets that don't know what a nest box is, you can kind of roll or lift those tabs up and tuck them in behind, and that gives a bigger opening. So when the pullet starts thinking about what's a nest box, where do I need to lay my egg, things like that. It makes it easier for them to find them. And then once everybody's
And
laying,
once they start using them, you can take
right?
those tabs off and let them
Yeah,
fall right back down, and they'll keep
exactly.
using that box.
Right. Once they determine that's where they're laying their egg, right, then you're good.
Why? And I saw this statement. I thought this would be good to talk about tonight. Why does darkness, calm, and height matter to the nest boxes for the birds?
Well, their instinct is to lay their egg in what they feel is a secure location, right? Where she wants privacy. In her mind, she's building a clutch, right? That she's going to set on in a week or so, right? And so, instinct tells her to go to the darkest place to lay her egg, right? That has security to it, walls and so on. And so that's just why they do that. Now, height, they need to be able to stand up in there and turn around, right? And the bird has to be able to enter fairly comfortably, not a lot of ducking going on, and she needs to be able to go in and turn around. So she's got to have enough height to do that.
Yep.
Right. But you want no more extra space than the bird can go in and turn around. Right. So quit thinking your chicken needs a king size bed when a twin will do. All right. It just don't.
Terry, what is your preference for bedding material in the coop to keep the eggs clean?
So if if the coop is exposed to the ailments and you have a nesting box there, I like to get the pads like they use in the commercial industry that are like AstroTurf, because it still gives them that natural feel. It's soft, but shavings are really nice. They make a fluffy bed, but any rain gets to them or anything like that, and they're going to start breaking down and eventually turn into either a soggy mess or mold. And you don't want either one. So I use that if it's exposed. If it is inside of a house, um, I hate to say it, but I really like straw and hay because it's soft. And especially in the wintertime, they'll get in there in the mornings when it's really cold, leave me an egg, get out when it warms up, and it's clean.
Now, we've never really talked about this, and I'm going to share something I learned from a good old boy down in Texas who was keeping like 500 layers in a converted cotton wagon, right? So he took an old cotton wagon, converted it into an egg layer mobile.
Perfect.
So he kept 3 to 4 inches of medium pine shavings, medium cut pine shavings, not the extra large, in there. Now he had 8 children, and they all 2 of them got to go. 2 would go to each egg mobile and gather eggs. This is one of the slickest tricks I've ever seen the man do. Right? Is he had a freshly laundered, sanitized, damp washcloth in Ziploc bag, and when he collected eggs, they went directly into the cartons that he was going to sell them in. Right? So if he reached in and there was by chance a broken egg or a Menordon egg or anything, it got washed immediately and put right into the carton for sale, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they'd reach in there, they'd take out whatever soiled pine shavings. He always kept an extra bale or 2 of pine shavings in every wagon. He just refreshed it. So he had the least amount of egg washing I've ever seen of any, larger commercial style, egg laying outfit. Now,
That probably saves him a lot of money.
it did.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to seeing that firsthand, right? I was on the same page as Carrie. I always use straw. I got really nice straw, tried to get chopped straw so it wasn't too long and fibrous. And I was a straw fan, but I tell you what, after seeing that and the amount of eggs he did not have to wash, right? Yeah, I was impressed because nobody likes washing eggs.
Mm-mm.
No, and if you're in a state where you don't have to, that streamlines your efficiency huge.
A lot.
And if you're just a backyard person selling them from a farm stand, you pretty much do whatever you want to, as long as you can keep your conscience clean.
Yeah, you still need to keep a clean egg, right? And then
Yeah.
actually, like dried on manure or something like that, you want to flick off with your finger. You don't really want to make it wet. Well, some people go to wash it, and as soon as you get that wet and you're pushing on it, you're actually pushing it through the pores, right? And that egg shelf life is going to be a lot less. So whenever you can, just kind of, flick it off with your fingernail or something else, but don't get that manure wet until you get the majority of it off with something dry by scraping or, then if you got a little bit of a stain or something, wash it off. But
so I've got a mitt that's designed for washing pots and pans in a commercial setting. It's like one of those yellow rubber gloves that has a Scotch-Brite pad on it, like made onto it. And I'll use one of those, and I'll wear the thumb part out because, flicking it with your fingernail, my fingernails are extremely thick compared to most people's. And I've actually cracked eggs, which is weird because I can drop eggs and they won't crack, but flicking crap, they would. So I use that and it works great.
well, your eggshells are harder than they used to be now too. But anyway,
Well, yeah, they are.
Sue's got the right idea though. It's like dogs get any of the eggs that had manure on them. So. But she must have enough eggs to do that. So
Well, she feeds good feed.
Her birds are really good layers too.
Mm-hmm.
Kerry was talking earlier about the AstroTurf-like material.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to the store and buy it, it can be pretty pricey, but our Lowe's store has a huge big box of remnants and end pieces.
Oh, yeah, they'll sell that to you, right?
But that is very reasonably priced. So if you want to try that, hop on down to your local Lowe's stores and see if they don't have a box of remnants down there you can pick through and get what you want. Oh, yeah. It's important that you have a perch bip on your nest boxes. That gives the bird a place to fly up to, walk down there till they find the nest they want to use and lay their egg. It just saves a lot of frustration, a lot of dirty eggs, and a lot of scattered shavings. But it's I use a 1x4.
You got to have a perch rail, right?
Yeah.
A nest box ain't a nest box if they don't have a perch rail. So, and it also should be wooden and something they can grab onto, when they get up there. So they're not wood ducks. They're not wood ducks that can just kind of fly into a hole. So.
I was thinking about that Will Smith movie where they fly into the alien station. They don't just do like that into the nest box. They need a place to hop up to or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
You're showing your age now because that's the old Independence Day.
I mean,
Yeah, good movie.
I embrace it.
I never go past it whenever I see it playing. So
Before we move on, I want to leave our viewers with this. One thing about nest boxes, remember this. Hens don't need fancy. They need privacy.
Yep, 100%.
I mean, my the first nest box that I had in with my reds, because you can't really find 12 by 12 by 12 nest box unless you go hijack some milk crate somewhere. So, which do work really well. So what I used was a storage tub, and Sue's the one that gave me the idea. She sent me a picture of a storage tub, and she'd stapled some curtains across the top of it, and I was like, that'll work.
Yeah.
Before you move on too far from nest boxes, though, we do got a couple questions in the queue.
Okay.
Yep.
Pop them up there, somebody.
So Natalie says she has a Jubilee Orpington, and I'm assuming a standard bred. Wanted to know if 12 by 12 is large enough, and yes, it would be just large enough. That is the correct size for a standard bred Orpington.
Yep.
So,
Let's
and
see. Here's one. What size nest box for hatchery Bantams?
I'm guessing you only need like 6 inches wide, probably 10 inches tall. I still like the 12 inches deep.
I mean, that's a 4-pound bird, right?
No,
Shouldn't be that much.
no.
I know
Most of your
one
bantams
company.
are about 2 pounds, give or take a half a pound. So 1.5 to 2.5 would be a bantam class.
There was one company at one point making a bantam size nest box, but I can't for the life of me remember what size they were because that was been 34 years ago.
But I would be using a 6 wide, 10 high, 12 deep.
Yep.
And that's
Maybe
just like I said, just enough that they can turn around, but you don't want a partner in the nest box.
So.
Maybe 8 inches if you're talking about Cochins and Brahmas and some of those bigger, your Asiatic breeds, but certainly no more than that.
A lot of people use cat litter boxes, like Sue said, and the ones where the lid kind of is on a hinge, and some people will drill a 6-inch hole in the top, and others will just cut it at the hinge and staple curtains to the top part of the hinge. There's all kinds of options. You can make a nest box out of just about anything.
Excuse me.
And RS wants to know, can you break a hen from nesting in the corner? Yes, you can, but you have to be in the coop when that hen is going into the corner. And for a few days in a row, you have to pick her up and put her in the nest box. Okay? The old timers referred to this as walking the flock. So when birds are coming in to lay, then sometimes you got to show a pullet where a nest box is, right? And so you have to literally pick them up, and it may take a week to break the habit. But if she's been doing it now for any length of time, it's going to be a really hard habit to break because that's her space. The other thing you can do is you can put a very bright, intense light in that corner where she wants to lay, and they don't like that, so she'll quit laying there. Now, that doesn't mean she won't go to another corner. So that's option number 2. I'm curious if your nest boxes are too far off the ground, right? So ideal height for a nest box is about between 16 and 24 inches to the perch rail, depending on the breed. So if it's a heavy breed, you want to be at about 16 inches off the ground to the perch rail on the nest box. And if it's a lighter breed, up to the 4-pound, 5-pound range, you can be at up to 24 inches. Birds will start to get lazy if you go much higher than 24 inches. If you go much lower than 16 inches, that casts a shadow and encourages them to lay on the floor under the nest box. Right? So perch rail for nest box 16 to 24 inches. People, I can't tell you how many chicken houses I go in, and they're up at waist high or more, right? 36 inches, and they're wondering why they're getting all these floor eggs. And I'm like, because your hen don't want to jump that high to lay her egg, right? That's not
Just
where
like
she
you
wants
don't want to
be.
bend over to get them.
Yeah. So, you know, one of you is going to lose, right? But if she lays it on the floor, you're bending over further to pick that egg up than if you had it at 16 or 20 inches. So,
Amen.
I like what Kelly says. Put the nest box in the corner. Put the nest
do
box
that.
in the corner, get her used to laying in it,
You can
and
do that.
then move it.
Yep.
Got any more questions?
I think that's it.
Okay, before we go on, I do want to thank our sponsor here. So we would like to take a short break to express our appreciation to the Fertrell Company for their sponsorship of the Poultry Keepers 360 Live programming. Fertrell has been a trusted name in sustainable farming and poultry nutrition for decades, and their commitment to providing high quality, natural product align perfectly with the values we hold dear in our poultry community. Thank you, Fertrell, for partnering with us to empower poultry keepers everywhere. We're truly grateful for your dedication and support. That is for sure. Okay, moving along here, let's get to secret 3, the bedding choice that saves you work. Let's compare deep litter, sand, peat moss, and shavings. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
You know, they all work, but my preference is always going to go to peat moss. And let me give you a few reasons why. One, the color looks more like soil or dirt. Um, I don't. I have less chances of them eating it, whereas I see too many chickens eating the small pieces of pine shaving. Right. So I don't want them eating that because they can't digest it. So, two, peat moss is naturally low pH as it comes out of the peat bogs. So it's going to discourage bacterial growth. It doesn't make a favorable living condition for things like coccidiosis, right? So, and it's actually naturally sterile. It does not come out of the bog with any bacteria on it whatsoever. So you're starting with a sterile substrate that's a low pH, and truthfully, its moisture holding capacity is 5.5 times that of pine shavings, right? So for every 1 bale of peat moss, in our test trial, side by side test trial, we used 5.5 bales of pine shavings to manage moisture and smell as we did 1 bale of peat moss. And I was sold at that point. So, look, they all work, right? But people measure things based on price, not without knowing the true difference. I'll tell you another observation that we made when we did that trial between peat moss and pine shavings. So when the intern that I had doing the trial would go, freshen up the bedding. So when she went in with the peat moss, all the chicks came running to her, right? Like they're ready to play in the new peat moss. And when she went in and put in more pine shavings, they all ran the other direction, scared to death for their life, like, it was an avalanche coming at them or something, right? So, that was, plus the chicks were already dust bathing in it at less than 2 weeks old. Somewhere around 7 to 10 days, we were seeing, dumb Cornish cross chicks that were already exhibiting dust bathing behavior in the peat moss. Never saw that in the pine shavings.
So, down here in Florida, I see a lot of sand bedding, but one thing about sand bedding, it does seem to dry out the feathers. And if you're into showing birds, you don't want that. So
It'll
be
take the
mindful of
sheen.
that.
Yep. It'll
Another
take the
thing,
sheen off of a feather in a hurry.
another thing that I don't like about sand is it disappears. Like mysteriously just disappears.
Well, just buy more.
I mean, and that's probably part of the marketing plan behind it.
Well, no matter what bedding you use, it's going to disappear. Right. So,
But I mean, like in 2 weeks, I've had some pens that I put sand 4 inches deep in, and couple of rains and it's gone. You know, like it flowed somewhere or went something. I'm a huge fan of peat moss too. You know, you described me a while ago because at first I was like, that crap's expensive. They're just going to poop in it.
Yeah.
But
at the end of the day, it's actually cheaper when you get
when you're brooding bird chicks, especially, you know, it's cleaner for them when you take them out of the brooder. You can compost that immediately. If you got poop and pine shavings, you don't really want to use that a whole lot.
With peat moss, you can go straight to the flower beds of the garden.
Yeah.
If you're using straw, pine shavings, or pretty much any other bedding,
it's going to have to go through a heat.
It's got to go through a compost pile
mm-hmm.
before you can use it. So
and you know, yes, peat moss is a little more expensive up front, but when you look at, you know, you could breed birds on peat moss for 4 weeks and be okay. You can't do that with pine shavings.
Oh no.
You're going to have about half a dozen different organisms growing and all kinds of crap if you do that with pine shavings. And it's going to be a catastrophe. And if you care about your time or you value your time, put a price on it, think about the labor to swap those things out every couple of days versus none until you take the birds out.
Exactly.
Well, not even just in the brooder, but like in a laying house, people don't like it because you can't put it in a nest box, right? Because the bloom of the egg will suck up that peat moss, like right now, and you can't wash it off. So it's not good in a nest box, but anywhere else in a layer house, the birds love it, right? I mean, just hands down love it.
And it's real airy, so it dries out fast.
Right.
So yeah,
it's good stuff. It controls odor as good as anything I've seen. Odor and moisture.
Yeah.
I have no experience with the stall pellets like Carrie uses, so I can't. You know, I haven't.
I use those with the quail mainly because it's easy, and you know they're only in the brooder for like 2 weeks, so I'm not gonna waste a run of peat moss to use for 2 weeks. And
you can leave it in there. You can use it a second time. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to do the 100% cleanup.
For real?
You can leave it there. Just freshen it up with a fresh layer on top before you put the next batch of quail in. You can do a deep bedding system with peat moss.
Okay.
Yeah.
Challenge accepted.
All right.
I'm going to try it out because I mean, I've known you for several years now.
How many times have I lied to you?
That's what I was going to say. I've known you for several years, and you've told me some really weird crap and some really tall tale sounding stuff, but it's never been wrong. So I'm going to try.
I agree.
Joy uses hemp bedding from Carolina Coops. Now, Carolina Coops is a little expensive, but hemp bedding is really turning out to be a really good bedding. So if you're somewhere you can get or have access to the hemp, it does work well, very absorbent, and it holds up well. So not everybody can get it, but it is a good. You know, and then in her big run, she uses chopped straw, and the birds will spread it out for you. So you can just bust open the bales, kind of in the middle somewhere, and they'll spread it. You don't have to do the work. So Ingrid said she saw the same thing, you know, with peat versus shavings with her chicks, you know, as far as running or not. Natalie says she used the peat moss a few years ago. She hated it, right? But I convinced her to try it again. So she's mixing it with a little bit of pine shavings right now. So people don't like the dust, and I get it, right? And here's
They
the
don't
thing,
like it in their feed, and they don't like it in their brooder.
and it doesn't hurt anything. Okay, it does not hurt a thing. And so I get people like Natalie, right? And they contact me and they say, God, I hate the peat moss. Everything is covered in brown dust. I hate it. I'm like, look, are you the one living there? Are your chickens happy? Shut up. Okay. Just, it's not your house.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
If they're happy.
Right. I'm not going to go wallow in a mud hole with a pig, but the pig's happy. So
There you
just
go.
let it be. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to come tell you how to decorate your house. So it makes sense.
Let's move on to secret 4.
Okay.
The feeder and water setup that cuts waste.
Mm.
And you would be amazed, folks. Instead of buying cheap feed, if you'll just make some adjustments to your feeding and water situation, you can save a pile of money. I could get off on my high horse here.
Do it. Do it so I don't have to.
But let's talk about treadle feeders. This is a feeder that the birds actually have to stand on to open a door so they can get in there and eat. And my problem with the treadle feeder is right there at ground level. And invariably, everyone I've ever seen gets full of dirt, manure, shavings, whatever, and they're a pain to keep clean. Some folks like them, some folks swear by them. They're not an inexpensive feeder.
I was not a fan.
No, they're not.
Until I was working with Ted Trevino in Kansas, and he has 4 of the grandpa feeders. Okay. Now, we've learned to compromise. Okay. So the only reason that I'm okay with the treadle feeder, the grandpa style treadle feeder, is I've convinced Ted to limit the amount of feed that he puts out there for the birds. Okay. So he's at 3.5 ounces of feed, for his birds, and they clean it up every day. Now, he had little faith that was going to be the case, but everything's running smoothly, right? So now with the treadle feeder and a controlled amount of feed instead of free choice and just letting them go in there and do their own thing, it's working. Okay. It's working. So I think there's a compromise to be had there, and a lot of people use the treadle feeder to keep mice and rats and things like that out. So, and it does do that very well because the grandpa feeder is metal, right? So it'll keep squirrels and wild birds and mice and all that out of the feeder.
Mm-hmm.
So, and in slight defense of the treadle feeder, and Rip, I was on the same page as you, okay, before 6 months ago. Ted's made me a questionable believer. Okay.
Questionable believer.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
I'm on the fence, but I'm leaning that way. So,
What about a trough style feeder? And I'm going to be honest with you, that is my favorite type of feeder.
Me too.
Me too.
And
now it has to be the old style trough. The key to a trough feeder is whether you use metal or PVC. If it doesn't have inturned lips, right, then
it needs to be deep.
You're gonna get a lot of waste. Okay, so they're gonna go in there and they're gonna sling it.
That's why I like making them out of PVC pipe.
Mm-hmm.
Cut off about 1/3 of the PVC pipe, and it still comes up, but it turns in up
Just
near the top.
Mm-hmm.
So that catches almost all of the feed that they're billing and throwing around like crazy. But the other advantage of those, it can double the amount of feeder space for you. Just bam, just that quick. Because
you can get on either side of it.
most feeders, they're standing on one side and they can't get to the other side. But with a trough style feeder, they can access it from either side.
especially if you make it hanging, right?
Yes.
And
Oh, yes.
and you need at least 4 inches of feeder space per bird. Okay, 4 inches of feeder space per bird.
I just forgot what I was going to say.
Uh-oh.
Story of my life today, y'all. But the PVC feeders are easy to clean, you know, uh, easy to disinfect. And if you've got, and I think every flock has what I refer to as the feed hogs, uh, who want to keep all the other birds run away from the feed. If you'll hang one in one area of the coop and another one in another area of the coop, and if you can get it out of sight even, then that kind of blows the feed hogs out of the water, and they can't guard two feed troughs set up like that.
Yeah.
Well, if you watch, right, if you go out there and you spend quality time with your chickens at feeding time, watch where the hens eat. Okay, now, I don't know about y'all, but at my house growing up, this was my chair at the dinner table. This is where my father sat. This is where my mother sat. This is where my sister sat. Everybody had their spot. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's just how I grew up, right? You didn't change your spot, and mom set the dinner table because that's where you're going to sit. Okay, so don't go changing things up. And if you watch your chickens, 90%, 90 plus percent of the time, they will eat from the same feeder at the same location every time. Okay,
Yeah.
so you just
Poultry is
compensate for that, huh?
poultry is very much creatures of habit.
Oh yeah,
Now, I mean, you think people hate change? Birds hate it even more.
Yeah, they do.
they really do. Like they like a structured lifestyle, right? They like everything being the same, being at the same time, being right, everything. Um, yeah, it's hard on them to change the way you manage them, right? When you do something differently, it is a stressful event. So you just
Hmm.
need to know. Um, yeah,
What about
Joy talks about how OCD she is about her feed system, and so she's got 16 hens. She gets 4 large stainless steel dog bowls, and she'll place them in different locations, spread them out. Um, and that's how she keeps the bullies. That's how the shy hens get a chance to eat while the bullies are being bullies. And she does it good, right? And she spreads them out all over the place, different
good deal?
locations. And she picks up the bowls every night. She doesn't leave anything out there. So, um,
Very good.
so we did have a question. Um, RS, do your hens and do your hens need more feed during the winter months because it's cold? So that's not an easy question to answer. If it's a really good, high quality feed, which means you didn't buy it at Tractor Supply or probably off of Chewy, then no, they do not. Right now, if you're feeding a lesser priced, lesser quality feed, they may need some supplemental energy for the winter, depending on where you live. So, I mean, if you're living down Florida, Alabama, for sure not. They don't need extra, right? If you're living in northern Minnesota, then we probably should talk about a way to, give them a little extra energy for the winter. But they don't need a lot, so don't get carried away, right? um, but small adjustments for winter. Otherwise, you're going to make them fat.
Doesn't take much to do that with chickens either.
It does not, right? So,
And remember, you want the lip of the feeder uh, just slightly about the same level as their shoulders or their back. That will help cut down feed waste too. What are y'all's thoughts? And I've never used them, but what are your thoughts on the PVC pipe feeders, the little vertical jobs that have like a 45-degree angle fitting on the bottom. The birds can stick their heads in there and eat.
I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I'm not a fan. So
No.
I wouldn't use them.
I
You know,
mean,
that bottom collection point is a good place for moisture to gather. You're going to
yeah.
end up eventually with some mold clumps down below that feeding point, and only one bird can eat at a time. So it has
Yeah.
to be a free choice feeding situation,
Yeah.
which I'm not a fan of. So
Yeah, I was gonna say, if with those people get those because they're handy, the silo style that I, I can't remember exactly who makes them, but it's the tall um, red ones with a white tank. You can put a whole 50-pound bag in some of them. You know, all those style feeders to me, if you're going to use them in a grow out situation where you do want them to have access to feed 24/7, you need to drill holes in the bottom of it. Plain and simple, to let moisture out, and some holes on the sides to let moisture or to let air through, because it's going to clump up in Alabama when it's humid. The silos will clump up in the little 1.5 2-inch tube that comes down. So you have to drill holes in them, modify them, or you'll think your birds had enough feed for 3 or 4 days, and they ain't ate in 3 or 4 days because the humidity clumped that thing up at the bottleneck.
nah, that's not your feed formula. You're talking about commercial feed.
Yeah, well, that's what most of these people.
All right. Well,
most people use pellets and stuff like that in their
and,
grow outs.
and something that we've never talked about on the show. And when you started talking about clumping, I forgot about it, just jogged my memory. And here's the thing, a lot of commercial feeds, okay, so they're allowed to sell feed up to like 12 or 13% moisture. And by the time they finish the mix, after they add the calcium and the minerals and the vitamins and everything else, they're only at about 7 or 8. It's not an uncommon practice to add a little water to the feed because water's cheap, right? And they're still
Adds
getting
weight.
paid. Right. Now, when you put that in a hot, humid situation like that tank feeder you're talking about, that moisture is going to start releasing in there, right?
Yep.
And that's why you see that clumping. You're never going to see that with the formulas that I put together for you, right? That's not even going to be a thing.
Well, in a coarse mash type, it will, if it gets wet. If you try to use a conventional feeder, you're going to have problems with mash. You need to use a trough. I don't care if you do like I do and you drive to Pennsylvania to see an Amish guy that takes cash, and he only takes cash, and you have to call him at 7:30 a.m. on the dot, or you won't talk to him, and get some really well-made trough style feeders, or you use PVC or whatever. But that works great. But it's worth the change.
Yeah, the trough feeder, in my opinion, is the way to go. So,
That's
all
a
right.
Cadillac.
So RS in Ontario said she has minus 20 C tonight. So it's going to start getting cold. That's still not horrible, right? And now, if they're like full size birds, 4 to 6 pounds, you could give them about a quarter ounce or about 7 to 8 grams of either wheat or cracked corn per bird. Don't overdo it. Okay, that's plenty, right? There's enough calories in that 8 grams or quarter ounce to offset the calories that they need based on temperature. At 20C, you're just starting to get to a point where they need a little bit extra. Okay, so anything above your minus 20C, I would not bother. Minus 20 to minus 40, I would be working on that. 7.5, 8 grams, 7 grams, 7 to 8 grams per bird of either whole wheat or cracked corn. So And she also asked if mash or pellets are better. You're going to get a different answer with every person you talk to, but I'm always going to be a coarse mash preference person, right? Because you have to put garbage in feed to make a good hard pellet.
Okay. We're going to run over tonight a little bit, but that's okay. But Carrie and Jeff did a show just on waterers, what, a couple of months ago or something like that, fairly recently.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to download Skinny on waterers, watch that video, and you can go to our YouTube channel, Poultry Keepers 360, and it's on the under the live tab. But a lot of good information in there on waterers. Um, and the last secret I want to talk about tonight is the lighting plan that supports steady laying. If you want birds to lay a lot of eggs over the greatest period of time, the bottom line is you're going to have to provide them with supplemental lighting. Um, I just
No way around it.
no, there's not. Um,
The hens need it for all their internal stuff to work, their hormones and everything else, and the rooster needs the light to make his stuff work to where he's able to do his job.
a lot of
Otherwise,
people don't realize that because when they start putting their breeding pens together, and they'll start saving eggs and they set them and they don't have any fertile eggs. Well, my rooster's a dud. Maybe not. Maybe he just doesn't have enough lighting
I'll say you probably
to be
didn't
able to
light
produce
him a
sperm.
month ahead of time.
Yeah, but I always tried to put my males on lights 30 days before I did the females, just for that reason.
Well, and the older your male gets, the more important that
Yes.
bringing up the lights gradually. So we didn't
Mm-hmm.
talk about that, but so 30 minutes per week of a light increase is all you want, right? You're trying to fool the chicken that it's springtime and it's time to lay an egg. The other thing we have to be careful about, guys, and I only mention this because Sue talked about her crevicore, and I didn't pronounce that right. I'm sorry, Sue, but it's so like the Faverels, the Chanticleers, the Crevicores, they are winter layers. They are completely backwards somehow in that they lay more eggs. There's certain breeds that lay more eggs in the winter and they quit in the middle of the summer. And how they got that to happen is beyond me. But like Esther said, her Chanticleers are getting ready to rock and roll for laying eggs, right? In the
Mm-hmm.
winter, right? So, and I learned about it from Matt Hemmer, who used to be Smoky Buttes Ranch in Kansas, right? In Lindsborg, Kansas, and his Faverels would lay hard all winter, right? And so, you know, not every breed is the same for their
No.
lighting requirement or their season of lay. Now, so you just need to know a little bit more about what you have, and you're kind of working against yourself if you have more of the common standard breeds and you have some of the winter breeds because now you can't satisfy both. If you increase the lights to keep eggs going, in your Rhode Island Reds, your Barred Rocks, your Cochins, whatever, then you're working against your low light layers, right? And so
You
just
just
be
need to
careful
build
what
another pen.
yeah, just be careful what you mix together.
That is a really good point that a lot of folks don't stop to consider.
Well, everybody's collectors, man. So I want a couple of these. Oh, I want a couple of those. Oh, right, and just based on looks, right, and how fluffy their cheeks are, and you know how big their crest is. It's like, come on. Um, you just have to accept the downside if you're going to be a poultry collector and not a poultry breeder.
Yes.
Right.
And I like to use LED lights. They don't generate a lot of heat. They're very cost efficient to operate. But Jeff, warm white or cool white LEDs, which is better?
I'm a warm white guy because we need for egg laying we need more of that red orange spectrum, which you're going to get in the warm white, and you're gonna get more of the blue hues in a cool white, right? And which is good for growth and development, but not good for egg laying. So the light spectrum makes a difference in a chicken's head, when it stimulates that pituitary gland for sexual maturity and laying. So color does make a difference. So it's either that or get a full spectrum, right? If you want to cover all of it, then you get a full spectrum. But I'm a warm white guy for egg layers.
Would there be any advantage to using a low red colored nightlight to reduce stress in the coop?
Not that I know of.
I've been asked that a couple of times, and I've said I can't think of anything. But I figured if anybody would know if there was, it would be you.
No, and here's the thing: is if the hen actually can see it as a light, right? If it has any sort of light stimulation, one thing I've learned over the years is every time a chicken wakes up in the middle of the night, it will creep towards the last light of the day, right? So if you have a yard light, or if there's any outside light coming into a coop, you're going to find all your hens at that closest point of the last light that they can see. Like they will wake up briefly in the middle of the night, and they may make a step or two, adjustment. And eventually by morning, they could all be piled up in a corner. So you got to be really careful. My hens didn't care, at all, if there was any light or not. I mean, I tried, I would run a heat lamp for them in the morning on the really cold days. Like if we got below, 15 or 16, below 20 Fahrenheit, right? Then, I had a heat lamp on a timer that would run for a little bit just to take the chill off. But that spectrum of red does not stimulate them, right? So you're not really doing anything for them at that, at that level of light.
Gotcha. And here's another question I get from time to time. Can I just turn the lights on and leave them on 24/7?
No, you overstimulate them. You burn them out, right? You'll overstimulate that pituitary gland, and
they've actually done studies of that even on people, and
it's a lot of stress.
even people will flip eventually because of the high amount of stress. And I'm a night owl and an insomniac, but at some point I've got to have it. So light all the time, no. They need 8 hours of sleep.
Well, a chicken, I mean, 6+, right? 6 to 8, not more than 8.
Well, I figured, Jeff, you're a nice rooster, but if you don't get your 8,
That's right.
it's ornery. So I figured chicken needed that too.
But see, when I was a cockerel, I could go on 4 or 5.
Well, that's true.
There's been a lot of water under that dam.
There's been a lot of water under that dam. Yeah. So Kelly asked,
Mine too.
5 minutes a day of extra light, right? So you can add 5 to 7 minutes each day of extra light. That is the most to mimic natural day, springtime. And there's actually like really fancy timers out there you can buy. The commercial houses have them that will automatically calculate for that and add that extra 5 to 7 minutes a day
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
light. Yeah, I
You
don't know
you can
what they
get
cost, but
you can get one for your backyard.
yeah,
$3,500.
yeah, that's what I was afraid.
Yep.
So
But there's you can do the same thing with setting an alarm on your phone and a $2 time Christmas light timer that you can get from the place. Any place, Dollar General or whatever.
Here's a good point. Uh, Renee says that, oh, wrong one. Sorry. Someone jumped in ahead of me. Um, I started leaving my brooder lights off and I get ambient light from my window unless I needed it. And I noticed a dramatic difference in the attitude of my chicks.
Mm-hmm.
too much people don't understand. Too much light is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Um, what we covered this, it was like 5 foot candles or 10 lux, same thing.
Yeah.
Right? And that's somewhere between 5 and 10 foot candles of light. And you can get that free app on your phone to measure it and check it. Right? When you start going above like 20 foot candles, you're causing stress on a chicken. Right? It's like,
Exactly.
and they're not sun worshipers. They do not like light intensity.
Mm.
They are jungle fowl, right? So
And like she said with her brooder lights, mine are on a timer, just like all my other lights, inside or outside. They're on a timer, and I start that in the brooder because they get used to that time, and their clocks get set, if you will. And I found that my birds have very little stress. So
Okay. Well, I think that covers pretty much what we had to do tonight. Um, Jeff, do you
it was
have
fun.
anything else you want to talk about tonight?
Huh? No, I'm good.
Carrie?
no, we covered everything.
Oh, Carrie, where do I
What?
get that Christmas T-shirt?
Oh,
Oh,
Where do I get
so
my Christmas? Where do I get my Poultry Keepers 360 Christmas T-shirt?
so
Where's that
let
graphic?
let me pop up a picture of that real quick. Hang on
All
just
right.
1 second, because I can add that real quick. Do. But you can go to let's see. Let me share this. Because when I bring it up on the screen, I can just share that screen
Okay.
and
Hurry up, people are leaving the room.
right here.
Okay.
So you can go to carrieblackman.com/PK360 and you got to put that in there or you won't find it. It's just for our listeners.
It's only for our group.
Yep, only for the groups.
Yeah.
We have t-shirts.
Are you going to share it so they can see it?
I mean, it's on the. Is it not?
No.
Oh,
Only you can see it. There we go.
Here it is. They go to carrieblackman.com/PK360. Get their official Poultry Keeper 360 merchandise. The shirt is available in a multitude of sizes and colors, as well as the hoodie.
so if you have a burning desire to have one of our t-shirts or a hoodie, you know how to get one. And they are very reasonably priced too, by the way.
Yeah, I thought so.
So,
All right.
okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. And you know, we'll be back in 2 weeks. So we hope to see you right back here then. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening. So long. Bye-bye.